I think from the latest figures we're getting from NEFIT, there isn't any chance of that. How far delayed it will be beyond that, no man knows. But what I want to try to give you this evening is a sense of the league structures that have been agreed and the competition structures, the changes we've made to the playing regulations in presentation. But in terms of content, the playing regulations are very little changed. So, firstly, we have two new clubs in our cricket. Cork Harlequins, who will join us and go into Division 4, and County Galway, who go into the Championship. I should immediately say that this is with the agreement of Munster Cricket Union and is an attempt to improve the standard of playing in Munster by putting their two more teams up against more regular competition. So County Galway will help us achieve something we've been trying to do for some time, which is to get an 8-team championship. So the championship lineup will now look like that: Balbriggan, Cork County, County Galway, North County, North Kildare, Railway, Rush and Terranure. Now, before you all start panicking about the travelling involved, the deal with Cork Harlequins and County Galway is that they play all their matches in Leinster. Whether that means they play home and away in Balbriggan's ground, or whether they play away in Balbriggan and then have to find another ground in Leinster to play the other game, remains to be seen once the fixtures are finalised. But Cork County will continue to play at the Mardyke, but Harlequins and Galway will play all their matches in Dublin. Sorry, not in Dublin, in Leinster. The league structures, there are 18 divisions. We have an extra division this year. 8 teams in each of the Premier, the Championship and Divisions 3 to 17A. We have a new Division 17B, which consists only of 7 teams. We're 1 team short for that, and it looks as if it's going to remain that way. 17B is very different. It's designed to provide a pathway for youth players into adult cricket, which is encapsulated in this extra regulation, which is going into the playing regulations for Divisions 5 to 17B. I'll read it to you. The teams in this division will be a mixture of adult and youth players. Each team will contain a minimum of 5 players registered as youth players on the Cricket Leinster website for the current season. Captains are encouraged to involve their youth players' participation in practical way in each match. Youth players will bat in the top 6 and or bowl a minimum of 3 overs or keep wicket. And in order to allow for the leaving cert, that restriction on 5 players will be reduced to 3 between the 14th of May and the 21st of June. Now, whether we're playing cricket by the 14th of May or the 21st of June, as I said, remains to be seen. But that is the intention of that division.
Peter, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Historically, it's been the situation that umpires don't get involved in discussions on the eligibility of players. In the very unlikely event that umpires are appointed to Division 17B, I presume the umpires don't have to manage this regulation because it's a matter for the OCC.
It would be. I think it would help if we had notification of it, but it should be apparent from the team sheet anyway, because you should have 5 players on there, at least, without an image.
Yeah, but no more than when an opposition captain says player A is not player A. We say, deal with the OCC, don't deal with the LCU&SA.
Absolutely,
it's the same situation in this case. You let the game go ahead.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Let the game go ahead. The OCC will deal with it, yes, very much so. We certainly don't want to be stopping people playing cricket.
So this regulation is no major concern of the umpires?
I'm merely informing you of changes to the regulations, and this is one of them. So everybody clear about that? Right, we'll go on. T20 Cups will be run on the same basis as last year, except we'll have a few more of them. There will be 9 cups in all, each one covering around 2 divisions. So the Alan Murray will cover the Premier and Championship, the Tulane will cover divisions 3 and 4, the Salva 5 and 6, Intermediate Cup 7 and 8, the Whelan 9 and 10, the Junior 11 and 12, the Russell Court 13 and 14, the Minor 15 and 16, and the Adamstown Cup divisions 17A and 17B. These will be played in largely the same way as we played our T20s last year. I'll come on to that in more detail in a moment. Alan Murray, there will be 14 teams. Cork Harlequins and County Galway, for obvious reasons, won't be travelling for T20s. And the competition will be played midweek evenings on a knockout basis, going back to the old model, if you wish. All the other T20s will contain 16 teams in groups of 4. And they will play each other home and away on a little round robin, and the first 2 in each little mini league will qualify for the quarterfinals. The only
Peter?
Say again?
Peter, it's me. Just put a point out, the Alan Murray in the current plan is still at weekends.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was knockout.
No, still at weekends in the current plan.
But again, on a knockout basis.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. The only exception to this is the Intermediate Cup. We had 2 spaces in the T20, so we decided the easiest way to manage them was to put them in the same cup. So the Intermediate Cup contains 14 teams. They will play in groups of 7, and they will play each other once, some home, some away. So they too will get 6 matches each. The first 4 in each group will go into the quarterfinals. And then from the quarterfinals, we go on a knockout basis to semi-final and final. The Knockout Cup competitions, or the Senior League Cup and the Senior 2 Cup, will be played as usual. But all other Knockout Cups are suspended for the 2021 season. Sorry, apart from the Irish Senior and the National Cup. The Irish Senior Cup, National Cup will continue to be played and will be administered as usual by Cricket Ireland. But the Leinster competitions, the only cups that will be played for are the Senior League Cup and the Senior 2 Cup. And that's because of commitments already made to sponsors. All the remaining Knockout Cups are suspended for the 2021 season. Reason for this was to try to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility in how we administered or fixed the appointments fixed the matches. If you do the sums on this, you can see already it's getting tight. Each team will have 14 league matches, 7 home, 7 away. They'll have 6 T20 matches, and there's quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, so that makes a total of 9 in the T20s. So we're up to 23, and the season is at most 23 weekends long. If you then try to slot knockout cups into that as well, there's just too much in. So for the moment at least, knockout cups are suspended. Playing regulations. The OCC took a decision last autumn, after some discussion, to remove all elements of the laws from the playing regulations. The playing regulations that we've historically used have been a mixture of law and local regulation. This has meant that, a bit like Topsy, they've grown over the years, and we did an exercise with one set of laws, or with one set of regulations, which dramatically reduced the length of it. Most regulations that we've been playing with over the last few years are between 32 and 35 pages long. By removing the elements of the law and just leaving behind the regulation changes to the law, we can reduce it to about 12 to 15 pages long. Obviously, those that contain DLS regulations and power play regulations tend to be on the longer side. Those without tend to be at the shorter end of that range.
Sorry, Peter, William Clark here.
Willie, yes.
As you well know, I flagged my concerns about this, and I'd like to raise it here again. I think this is a dangerous path we're going down. I've seen the regulations as has been sent out. I think they are more confusing and difficult than they were last year or the year before when we had the full set. Regulations are for umpires should be bread and butter, but we don't umpire every single match in every single division. Therefore, there are going to be probably a slight majority of games that don't have LCU&SA appointed umpires, where players will be officiating. And I think these regulations, in the format they're in, makes that an even harder job, and one that is open to much more on-field discussion and essentially argument. That and a couple of other things. I believe it is. There's an underlying assumption that every umpire knows every single law. Where previously you could carry a copy of the regulations onto the pitch, now you have to have a copy of the regulations and a copy of the laws. So there's no saving on, a copy of the regulations or whatever it is in your pocket. You still need it. So you need to, cutting it down to 12 or 15 pages. It's not that, I don't know how much that saves in any shape or form. You still gonna have a copy of the laws and a copy of the regulations with you at all times. And just reading them, I think it makes it difficult to follow some of it because the numbering doesn't follow in the exact order as well. So there's complications there. And I just want to say I want to put my thoughts out that this is my view. And while the OCC may have decided this, I wonder if the vast majority of umpires, when they see this, will actually agree with what the OCC have done.
Okay. Personally, I always take both onto the field. If I had to dispense with one, I suppose I'd probably dispense with the playing regulations. I wouldn't dream of going onto the cricket field without the blue book in my pocket. But that's just me.
But that's what I'm saying is that's all well and good for me and you and everyone else on this call, right? We're the ones who are going to be umpiring, and we're going to be the guys knowing. We should know the regulations. We should know the laws. I don't see how this benefits the players who are playing. And as someone who will probably be playing in the equivalent of Division 13 if I play this year or whatever cups that is, I just think there is, again, making it harder for players to follow the regulations than we should be making it. I think if the regulations were laid out as they were previously, it covers everything. The laws are there, the appropriate laws, the appropriate changes, everything follows. The fact that it's 30 pages, That, they're a long set of regulations. Cutting it down just to cut down to 12 pages, I don't know if the benefit of that. So that's my...
Okay, I respect your view. It's not one I share. I think umpires are more likely to read and understand and apply correctly regulations that are nothing more than that. What's been interesting in doing this exercise is how many errors we've found in the reducing process. Things that were in there that were demonstrably wrong, that nobody noticed, and some of them have been in there for years.
Peter, is there any concern for people whose English isn't their first language?
I'm not sure that comes into it, does it?
Well, it does, because if with the previous set of playing conditions, everything was in one place, and now we have a situation where we have two documents, one of which refers to another document, and they're cross-referenced to each other. And it may well be the case where you have a person, and there are plenty of them on this call whose English isn't their first language, may well be confused by references here to, notwithstanding, wherewithal, all of that information. And it could just be more confusing for those who don't have English as a first language to have to try and cross-reference one document to another.
But Prashant, I mean, couldn't be like someone in Ireland would be knowing how to read and speak English? I mean, sorry, Kevin, I just didn't understand your point. Like if people don't have their English as first language, I don't think they would find it difficult reading a document with an LCU&SA group.
Okay, that's good.
I think, in fairness, I should pass on my thanks to Willie, Steve, Paul, Owen Crossan, Aidan, and Bala, who've all been asked to look through these regulations and spot things that are either wrong, don't make sense, shouldn't be there. And I hope that we will land up with a much more accurate set of regulations than we've had heretofore. We have had one or two very bizarre things in there. Bala spotted something a few weeks ago in one of the set of regulations, and I cannot remember which one, which said that in the event of a bowl out in a cup competition, that the side which had batted second should bat first.
That's correct. That's the standard rules for a bowl out used worldwide.
No, it's not. Nobody bats in a bowl out.
Yes.
Not a super over, it's a bowl out.
Super
Yeah.
over. Indeed, I take it back. Yeah, Peter. Before we leave this topic, did you consult the clubs? What did the clubs say?
No, I didn't. We didn't consult the clubs.
Is that something you should probably do before the season starts? Because the reason I say that is if the clubs suddenly come back with a massive weight of authority saying no, we need all the things in one place, are you going to have to reissue regulations between now and the start of the season?
Well, what I think everybody has to understand is this is not rocket science. This is what the ECB already do in their competition.
That's not what I asked you, Peter. In fairness, the clubs do have an input into this, and if the clubs say no, we like the old structure, we need everything in one place for our own simplicity, surely the Cricket Leinster and the OCC have to listen to that.
We have to listen to that. That's true. Yes.
So you need to ask them.
We can certainly put that to them.
Yeah. So there is a risk then in that case that these regulations might all change back again before the start of the season.
Well, there's a risk that we'd have to reassemble them, but at least we'd have reassembled them without the mistakes that we had in there that we'd inherited.
I'm not sure what's going on. As I'm probably the longest umpire here, every AGM I have been at, there has been a huge question mark by all the umpires. Can we not get rid of all the paperwork? Can it not be abbreviated? Can it not be separated? Every year the same question comes up. And now when it's done, it's causing problems.
Sorry, Joe, I'm William here again. All I'm saying is I'm putting my view forward, and I can say that I've never said at an AGM, can we have the regulations reduced?
No, I
agree with your point that certain umpires and people have said that, but what I'm saying is definitely I have concerns about it. If that's the way, if we go with whatever they are, the way they are now, fine. But I'm just saying I have reservations about it, and I'm just expressing them.
No, I appreciate that's what you're there for. But I know, like everybody used to complain about the size of the file you used to carry around them all the time.
My opinion is that I think I prefer the abbreviated ones because I umpire about 4 or 5 different leagues on 2-3 different cups, and I don't want to be carrying around 6 sets of laws and thing. I rather have a smaller set of papers that I have to print out every year. And I think it's easy enough to, the laws and just put the regulations on top of these laws. It's perfectly all right with me.
I think at this stage, unless there is a very clear message back from clubs that they want the regulations in the historic form, we should try this and see. We can always revert in 2022 if there are problems that we didn't foresee.
Is
Anyway,
everybody happy with that?
Yes. I suppose my point, and I thought Willie actually phrased it quite well, is his concern is not necessarily for the official umpires. His concern is for games that are being officiated by non-official umpires, where if there is a difference of opinion, shall we phrase it like that, they can consult and get an immediate answer from one immediate set of document, i.e. the regulations in their past form. I also take the point that if we don't try something new, then we don't know. So I can see both sides of the argument here.
And the other thing, of course, Will, is that the regulations don't contain all the laws.
Fully appreciate that as well. Fully appreciate that.
There's no saying that it will solve the problem down in Division 16 where there's no umpires.
Valid. Yep.
From my experience of umpiring at that level, I think if the clubs look at them at all, or the players look at them at all, they look at the number of overs, the number of overs per bowler, and that's about the height of it.
Well, can we agree to carry on?
Yep.
Just before we do, Joe, it's Mickey here. I'd like to come in as chair of OCC on that. Whether the OCC considers a need to go back to the clubs on this will be a matter for the OCC to discuss at its meeting, and not as a result of being asked by the umpires at this stage, but we will consider it. And the second point I want to raise is in relation to matches that don't have umpires. No captain or side is going to be carrying the regulations with them anyhow. All they're going to be doing is referring to the documents online, and they just need to look at what one or two documents as a referral. So I don't think it's a very valid point.
But that's exactly the point. They don't have to look at one document, they have to look at two. Previously, they had to look at one.
Yeah, but they won't be carrying the documents around with them, which is the point that was being made.
I'm not saying carrying, Matt. I appreciate what you're saying. All I'm trying to phrase is carrying on Willie's point. With the unfortunate experience of being on field when there's been a difference of opinion on that, literally one document is just being grabbed at the side of the field. Two captains have a very, very quick look at it, and we're all done 2 minutes later. We're just highlighting that it's now going to be two documents, and sometimes far more difficult. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that there's an issue here. I'm quite happy to progress with what the OCC has stated. However, we are just pointing out the potential pitfalls of this. That's all that's been said.
Okay, can we agree to leave it to the OCC and carry on?
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Peter.
The regulations of the competitions themselves are unchanged. So the T20 Cups are exactly the same regulations as you umpired in 2020. The league regulations are exactly the same as they were in 2019. So Premier Division 4 is still 50 overs, 5 to 9 is 45, and 10 to 17B is 40 overs. 20% max for any one bowler. Senior League Cup T20 competition regulations are unchanged from the last time they were played last year in 2020. Alan Murray and Senior 2 will be unchanged from 2019. one thing that we did come across in doing this was Law 41.6, the bowling of dangerous and unfair short pitch deliveries. This law was changed several years ago. I don't know exactly when, but the effect of it was that it reduced the number of warnings given to a bowler. So historically, it was a first warning, a final warning, and then he was off. And the law changed so that it became a first and final warning, and then he was off. But we retained the old version. And that seemed to the OCC to potentially be dangerous. If somebody got seriously injured after 2 warnings, his family might reasonably wonder why he wasn't taken off. So we have reverted that back to the law so that it is now a final warning followed by a suspension. It's no longer the 2 warnings and a suspension, which was what was in the regulation. The only other aspect of law is Law 5.3 and Appendix B. This relates to the size of the bat blade, in particular the thickness of it. When this was introduced in 2019, a moratorium was given for the lower divisions. Those 2 years have now passed, so that it now applies to all adult cricket. And Mick Carter will be putting a notice up on the Cricket Leinster website to remind all the players of this.
Peter, that last one, 5.3, that was a directive from Cricket Ireland. Have they changed their mind?
Well, the moratorium was 2 years.
Yeah, and they renewed it every time. It was an annual renewal from Cricket Ireland that they looked at every year. Have they cleared it for 2021?
Well, sorry, I was unaware of that. I understood it was a 2-year moratorium. I didn't realise it was an annual, so we'll go and ask them. That's easy.
Okay.
In which case, hold fire on 5.3 and Appendix B until you hear more. But the OCC was unaware of that.
The Cricket Operations Manager in you.
Sorry, Peter, so there's no extension of DLS or nominated scorers down the divisions this year. Is that correct?
No, we're sitting with what we've got. To be honest with you, who knows how much league cricket we'll be playing anyway? It's not within the bounds of possibility that we may be landing up with another year of just T20 competitions. If the infection numbers remain stubbornly high. So the OCC felt that it was not the year to be changing regulations. That's my lot. So, if anybody has any other queries?
Yeah, quick one, Peter. When are we going to have regulations?
We have currently agreed all of the T20 regulations except the Alan Murray. And we've agreed divisions 5 to 17. The Senior League Cup regulations, as you know, went out to my team of 6 today to look at, and I would hope to have comments back from them within the next couple of days. I've just received this evening back from Simon the Premier League to Division 4, and I will now circulate that. I hope to be working on the Alan Murray and the Senior 2 Cup later this week. So the short answer to your question is I would hope to have them all finalised later this month.
Okay. Would it be fair to say then that it's very possible we're going to need another workshop on the regulations when the regulations actually come out? I know there may not be any changes, but you still need to go through the regulations pre-season too, because there are obviously a number of new umpires. So we need to go through, have a regulations workshop where the regulations being circulated beforehand, so everyone has copies and are aware of it.
I think that would be very sensible, but I don't think we should contemplate it until we know the shape of the season.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, we could be lecturing at great length about competitions that are never going to happen.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I'm just saying, is there Just that because we don't have the regulations yet, that there will be a need when we know what competitions we're going to have, and so we know that there's only going to be T20 competitions this year. Then we're going to need to have another workshop sometime over the next couple of months, just on those T20 regulations.
Absolutely. Certainly, once all the regulations are finalised, let's say by the 1st of April, I've no problem in circulating them to all hands in their final form, with the caveat that we may not be using any or all of them.
Yep, I fully agree.
That's fine, Peter. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other? Is there anything on the chat, Peter, that we should know about?
Yeah. Has there been any regulation changes for women's cricket?
I'm going to refer that one to Kevin.
Some minor technical changes, but nothing significant for umpires to manage in particular. No.
Okay.
Someone has also asked if there's any way of getting the new regulations. I presume they'll be circulated once on agreement. So I'm just going through the...
Yeah, I mean, my aim is to have everything available by the end of March. Now, we certainly aren't starting in April. I mean, on that much we can definitely agree. So you'll have at least a month to look at them before we're organising any workshop.
Thank you.
Okay, has anybody else got any questions? I take that as a no then. Peter, thanks very much for your time and all the work you've done. I think we all appreciate it, and we look forward to the pre-season meeting, whenever it starts.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, everybody.